Thursday, July 22nd. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, our review of the book club book, The Lies of Locke Lamora.
Let's do this.
So we had this discussion just before doing the show. Scott didn't want to do the news bit because he basically said, yeah, nothing happened. I don't have anything. So, Scott, my question to you is, has nothing in the entire world, any news, elicited any opinion whatsoever from you?
I'm scrolling on the Google News, so if there is such a news, which there may be.
So nothing. You don't care about the fact that BP was basically, when they were injecting all that stuff to try to kill the well? Mm-hmm. The stuff they injected was toxic waste that they normally couldn't legally dump. And supposedly, according to the news now, they used the kind of special permission they got.
Is this on the real news or is this on the hippie news made up stuff?
This is on the real news.
Okay, because I'm seeing lately a lot of,
Did you see that Onion article that got picked up by a bunch of right-wing blogs and people are taking it seriously about
that happens every day.
You know what? I've noticed something weird about that. Is it just me, or when the Onion gets taken seriously, like someone's stupid and thinks it's real, why is it almost always the far right that takes it too seriously as opposed to the far left?
Because you know what? I was reading
It's like they're both crazy, but I feel like they're crazy in very pathologically different ways.
This reminds me of two things I read recently. Number one, there were some people discussing that there's they always look for discrimination in colleges, mostly because colleges brag about diversity. So therefore,
what was that one college where they caught them photoshopping black people into their
right, exactly.
pictures?
But the colleges brag about diversity on campus, so therefore they get heavily scrutinized in terms of the actual diversity. And it turns out that yes, indeed, statistically speaking, a lot of these colleges, what they're doing is they're not discriminating against white people. There's plenty of white people there, right? Is they're discriminating against white people from the sticks, these right-wing type people. And if you look...
No, is it discrimination, or is it just those are not the kind of people who tend to get into colleges?
So there was a study, and it showed that Asian and white people, at least in the U.S., when they apply to colleges, if you want to be accepted, you need much better grades. Whereas if you were something else, African American, Hispanic, anything except white and Asian, you could actually get into the same school with much lower grades, and you would be accepted. And the thing is it actually also... What they've noticed, which is the main problem here, these right-wing people, right, is if you're a white person from the sticks, it's actually harder to get into the schools, right? It's like they want to bring in and be able to say our campus is so diverse, so they kick out the white people from the sticks and they bring in anyone else who's not white.
I think the real trouble is that the standards, at least for universities, should be the same. If you have the ability, go for it.
Yeah, I don't they can brag about having a diverse campus or whatever, but that's just BS, right? They should accept. They should not even.
That's marketing to the parents and the high schools.
Exactly. They shouldn't even know. Right? When you're employing people in the real world, you're not allowed to even use that as criteria, right? The college should be the same way. They shouldn't even know what color you are. Well, maybe they shouldn't be you send in your application and you need to put down your name, and sometimes they give stuff away. Like if your name is like my friend Luther Wang, right? There is no question.
He's a Jew.
You know he's a Jew just from his name, Or like Tony Zhao, obviously, that guy is French. There is no question.
See,
right?
Thibodeau, it is pronounced Thibodeau.
Right.
But the thing, remember, the reason we had these sorts of affirmative policies before was to give people a shot to kind of reduce the built-in discrimination from previous eras of injustice.
But it's like a Band-Aid, and it's not curing the wound. It's like you got a Band-Aid, so you don't see that there's this gaping wound, and every time we lift up the Band-Aid, the wound is still there.
Well,
if we made it a meritocracy, then the black people, they're still not. And we still. It's basically we're hiding the fact that we can't fix the real problem.
Is it hiding though,
suck.
or didn't it? I mean, is it not possible to say that it did a lot of good from the 60s and 70s, where racism was so endemic, of getting people onto an equal footing to the point where eventually we can pull these things back and say, all right, everyone starts with the same shot.
Yeah, but I mean, the public school situation is completely different from the university situation. Basically the problem was that there were people who wanted to get into university and deserved to be in university but couldn't, because there really was outright horrible discrimination. And we've mostly succeeded in getting rid of that. And it's still out there, and we still got to get rid of that shit. But, like, there's still, like, golf courses that don't want people coming on and shit like that.
They don't want me to golf.
Yeah, well, I mean, they don't, they'll be like, no women on this golf course. Those still exist, and it sucks ass. But at the same time, right, it's like, well, you really just didn't do so well in high school, and you're obviously, not very good. But you are, you're African American or whatever you are. You're not white. So we're going to let you in anyway. And then, I want to see, if they show me some, this is, I don't know, is there a study on this? I'd be very interested.
There's tons of studies on this.
No. Studies on whether those people actually do well.
Yes,
once
there's
they get
tons of
into the
studies.
college.
By and large, people who are given some sort of non-merit-based scholarship tend to not do well or not graduate compared to people who had merit-based scholarships.
Oh, so they are actually not doing well.
Yeah.
Oh, so again, so sadly, right? Like I was going to say, I wish that the study would say that, look, we get them into college even though they didn't do so well in high school,
this
and
is
then
where
they do well. So it's okay to accept the people with the lower grades because it works out in the end. You are actually helping them. But if they're not doing well in the college, well, it's like, oh, fuck.
But at the same time, no, because that's on average. What you're doing still is you're giving them a shot. Because think about how many people could have gone to RIT if money weren't a factor and made it through that crazy ass school. And at the same time, how many people got in because they had money and were allowed to stay, but sucked and eventually got kicked out anyway after they lost all their money.
That's also true. But the thing is, right?
Isn't that almost a reverse discrimination? You're saying, all right, you have money. So
yeah, we definitely
we're
need
going
to keep out the people who only have money and don't actually have talents and skills.
We also need to keep out the stupid people, which a lot of the people at RIT, a lot of our classmates were kind of
stupid,
not good at what they were in school.
But I mean, basically,
for.
what's happening though is there are people in the sticks, right, who aren't getting in because and they're basically being discriminated against that way, at least statistically speaking. So
I'd like to actually look at this study.
Yeah, I gotta go find these articles, but basically, it's like if you're from the sticks.
Wait.
But could it also be that the people from the sticks are stupider?
I'm guilty of this too, so I'm going to say this straight up. I have to find the article for you is code for I am not going to follow up on this. I'm going to hope you forget, and if you raise it again...
I think partially it was because I read 2 articles on the same day that said the same thing from different people.
Oh, I've been in the same situation. It's never that like, oh, I'm losing this argument, I'm going to make up an article and hope they forget. It's always, I do have a source, I don't remember it, and I don't care enough to go find it later.
I don't really have an opinion on this. It's just I'm pointing out that like there's been a lot of talk about this. Like people from the sticks are getting discriminated against, and basically a couple of the articles were like they were definitely opinion articles that were raging. They were like evil, blah, discriminated.
Well,
against.
what I would guess, what probably is going on, independent of all this, is that the quote unquote sticks. I mean, I couldn't say that schools are worse or better out there because, I mean, some of the richer parts of California have some of the worst performing schools in the country. So that doesn't work really well.
Spoiled
but
rich kids.
The saddest part is that in the end, socioeconomic status at birth seems to be the primary factor in later success.
Yeah, well.
And that's probably the worst problem.
That's what's, as I already discussed how that's what's under the Band-Aid, and that is what is still not fixed.
That's why we need
we need to stop, and the thing is, I think... okay, we still haven't really figured out how to fix it. It's a very difficult problem.
Want to do a Thursday show on this? I have an idea how to fix it.
We're putting a whole lot of effort into fixing. Is this your idea of give everyone a pile of money when they're at?
No. I like that idea, but no, it's not that idea.
The problem is that we're putting all this effort into Band-Aid ideas, and we're not actually putting the full effort into the curing the actual wound itself. And we should just throw, it's like we should just throw away the Band-Aid, no matter how upset people will be that they have to stare at this gaping wound, and concentrate our full effort on the true problem.
Wouldn't that work for the Tea Party now? If we just said, all right, an unnamed state that doesn't want government interference, have fun without government subsidies.
I definitely think that there
no roads, no schools.
It's definitely my opinion that there is far too much federal subsidizing, and I think the first ones that have to go would be, say, farms.
No, I would take the opposite tack. Government subsidy is fine in my eyes, as long as people who use that subsidy understand that it's there and don't argue against government subsidy while simultaneously protecting their own subsidy. That is the only part that bothers me.
Well, that seems to be how most people operate, is they don't actually have, they watch TV and they get some idealistic political science viewpoint, like, it's better to be, fiscally conservative. We should have low taxes and low spend, right? And they get that idealistic viewpoint, but they don't actually hold that idealistic viewpoint. The only viewpoint they actually hold is better for me and worse for everyone else. Whatever's better for me is what's better. So if I'm getting money from Medicare's awesome. But
Medicare's socialism.
High taxes are always bad for me. So we want low taxes always, because that's better for me.
You don't even pay those taxes, old man.
People just want what's better for them. That's what they actually want, is better for them. They don't actually hold the idealistic viewpoint unless they're arguing about something that has nothing to do with them, in which case they'll default to their idealistic whatever it is.
I think we should make
And if it has something to do with them, then they will pick whatever's better for them.
I think we should make this a Thursday show.
The show's already done.
Now we got more. We could pick. I'll put forth my plan.
There was something else we were discussing too, and I completely forgot what it was.
That's fine. So semi-related to all this, only in that it involves old people. I got a news because
old people.
But I proved my point. You said, "Oh, there's no news. There's nothing to talk about. Why even do the front half of the show?" And I got 10 minutes out of you.
Oh, the other thing that I remember.
Even more. It's still coming.
There was a thing on Boing Boing, right? And it was talking about how
I thought there was nothing on the internet.
Well, I already blog commented on this, so it's kind of redundant. But anyway, they were talking about how, like, the feds in the States are actually doing more raids on bad farms that are doing raw food and raw milk and shit. And I was like, yeah. But the article on Boing Boing specifically was talking about, like, this 12-year-old girl, and I think the quote was, "Don't take my computer, I can't do my homework." And I'm like, okay, bad. Why are they taking some raw milk dude's computer?
Because they can. Don't get me started on police seizures.
But on the other hand, of course, half the hippies or most of the hippies in the fucking comments on Boing Boing were like, "Let the people drink raw milk." And I'm like, look, dude, I can respect your freedom to drink raw milk if you make your raw milk and you drink it. But you know what? The law says that the government has the right to regulate commerce.
But Scott,
period.
Law and morals are two separate things.
So, and then on top of that law argument, but completely separate from that law argument, here is my moral argument, right? Someone might be stupid, and they might have the right to be stupid. And that might mean that they have the right to poison themselves with poisoned milk, all right? However, number one, they don't have the right to poison their children with poisoned milk. And number two, even if someone is stupid, so stupid that they want to poison themselves with poisoned raw milk, right? They don't really deserve to die or get listeria or freaking E. coli because of that amount of stupidity.
Fecal coliform.
That amount of stupidity does not warrant that amount of consequence.
Yeah,
right?
Therefore, I would never wish gastroenteritis on another human being again.
And gastroenteritis could, just be stomach sickness for a few days. And I'm still not going to wish it on anyone. So, I mean, while you have the right to be stupid, do you deserve death for being that, stupid enough to drink raw milk?
Well, Scott, we have precedent because if you look at the classic Nintendo game Shadowgate, death is, in fact, the consequence of all possible actions, save one.
So if I see someone on the side of the street, right, and let's say they're about to drink, I don't know, they're about to smoke a cigarette. Now, that's pretty stupid, right?
You're going to tackle them, rip it out of their mouths, and be like, I saved you.
No. But let's say that that cigarette actually has, like, cyanide in it, and they're going to die. But they don't know that. They're stupid, even though it's said right on the package, like it's instant death cigarettes.
Who sells cyanide cigarettes?
They're not so sure that it's instant death cigarette, right? Even though you told them that. They're like, no, it's not. It'll only give me cancer when I'm way old. They think it's just a little bit unhealthy. And in fact, they'll say that these cigarettes taste way better than any other ones, just like they say the raw milk tastes way better, right?
It does taste a little better, I think.
I'm just saying, right?
I still wouldn't drink it again.
If someone is doing something that they think is slightly stupid, but is very stupid, and that the consequences are very severe, and they don't know and they don't believe the consequences are as severe as you say, and the consequences are basically they're killing themselves and they don't think they're killing themselves, right? Like if someone's about to jump off a bridge with a bungee cord and the bungee cord is way unsafe, but they don't believe you. They say, no, this bungee cord is totally safe, right? Is physically stopping that person is basically saving them from their own stupidity, right? You're saving their life. So it would be if someone was about to do that bungee jump with the cord that they thought was safe and I knew was not safe and I stopped them from doing that, would that not be totally cool?
Probably.
I'm saving someone's life from their own stupidity. So if somebody is drinking poison milk or whatever other nasty poison bathtub cheese or whatever the hell raw food they got.
The queso.
They got from the dirty farmer, right, who didn't want to, follow the government's rules about clean food, and I stop them or the government stops them from eating that food, that's the same as saving that bungee jumper's life, and it should totally be okay. Unless you want to argue that I mean, if you want to argue that there's a right to suicide, that's a separate argument, because this is someone committing suicide who doesn't know. They think they're only hurting themselves a little bit, but they're gonna get really hurt, and they don't know it just because they're dumb.
Scott, I got like 3.5 more minutes out of you.
All right, whatever. There wasn't any newses.
My only news was Scott is blah about everything, but then if you actually get him talking, he's got something.
You said something else that instigated this.
Yeah, so you can't.
That reminded me.
You're not self-motivated that I did in fact come before you?
I'm just not self-reminded.
You're not an actor, but you're simply a receiver?
Oh, I was reminded of something to talk about.
So you're catching as opposed to pitching?
You want to see what's on my
I'm pitching the ideas, you're just catching them?
Oh, I got stuff to say, I just don't remember what it was, and it wasn't news.
So, I mean, now I don't even have to talk about the city of old people that is in an uproar in Florida about the fact that a school's being built in their community. I don't even have to talk about that now.
Oh my gosh.
There's funny things to say, probably. The Fark headline was like, town wants everybody to get off their collective lawns.
There you go.
But I don't have to say anything. We had a good
I don't think there's much. Do we really need to say anything about that?
I don't think we do. I'll link to the article anyway. It's pretty great.
It speaks for itself.
So anyway, things of the day. I don't know how this guy survived. Never mind the guy in front of him hanging out in all the lightning.
Is it like an own video?
No, just a picture.
Okay.
It's a picture I took at the Olympic Stadium in Athens during a severe thunderstorm. Over a half hour, he caught, quote, 51...
Wait, which Olympic Stadium? The recent one or the ancient one?
The recent one.
Okay.
Caught, quote, 51...
Is the ancient one still there?
The Olympic Stadium?
Yeah, that they used in the original Olympics. The original Olympics. When they had wings on their feet.
When were the original Olympics?
Like over a century ago?
Anyway, so he captured 51 quote-unquote
Oh my God, a
thunders.
century ago was 1910. It must have been like multiple centuries ago.
So basically what he did is he had the camera set up and he just took pictures of a whole bunch of lightning and superimposed all of them together into one picture of this giant lightning display.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of awesome.
Ancient Olympics, 776 BC. I was right, many centuries ago.
Yes, many.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so what do you got for me?
Oh, so the one geekery that I do not like is Star Trek. However...
The one geekery?
I don't know. What other geekeries don't I like?
But cannot all things be geekeries? I mean, you're not really into personal genital mutilation geekery.
Okay, but I mean the one...
So there's at least two.
I mean the one thing that is like,
Stereotypical
geek, yeah. I mean it's a sci-fi thing, it's ultra pop. Anyway. But I do know at least this much, that there was an episode of Star Trek about some fuzzy creatures called Tribbles, yeah, and they basically get all over the place, and then they get rid of them somehow. I never saw it. I just know that there's an episode
That's about right.
that.
They breed like mad.
Yeah.
They breed like Kirk.
Yeah, anyway. And I also know that I am excellent at recognizing quality graphic design, although I could not make it for the life of me. And apparently at the Alamo Draft House, some guy made them some new posters to hang up, and they are Trouble with Tribbles posters, and the graphic design is like unbelievably...
Oh my God, that is the same style as that awesome X-Men poster.
There's two. There's another one. There's a red one and a blue one.
I kind of want that blue one on my wall.
Yeah, they're like the highest quality, and I think it's like a limited edition print something. You might not even be able to get it now. Who knows? But yeah, 18 by 24 inch, go on sale Friday on the Mondo website.
Mondo.
There's going to be 350 blue ones and 190 red ones.
Huh.
So I hope you have your monies.
I have plenty of money.
Yeah, but the graphic design is excelente, I can tell, even though...
You can tell by the pixels.
Even though I don't care about the subject matter, and that's probably the only thing that's preventing me from buying this. is the subject matter. I mean, remember that X-Men? It's the same.
That's what I just said.
Oh.
I said that. Do you not even listen?
No.
You're right next to me. You were 4 feet away from me.
I was busy looking at the excellent graphic design.
So, very briefly, the meta moment. The book club was obviously The Lies of Locke Lamora.
What's the next book club?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
We're working on that. Next weekend is Otakon. We will not be there. They don't have a schedule yet, so there's no way we could go.
Do we even need to say that we're not going to
Well, because other people, a lot of people expected us to be there. I've gotten some emails.
Oh, okay. Oh, but, you should go to Otakon if you're close by or if you have,
Yeah.
We'll probably have fun.
I mean,
you'll have the same amount of fun as if you had if we weren't there. It's not going to be different.
It'll be a little
From the
different.
perspective of a con goer. Unless the only reason you like going to Otakon is to see us, in which case, what the hell's wrong with you?
We've probably made a lot of fans happy because, we decided not to do the 2 panels they'd confirmed. So they got 2 more Hetalia panels, I'm assuming.
I hope so.
But all that aside, we got the Penny Arcade Expo coming up at the end of summer. We'll be there. New York Comic Con Anime Festival, 10/10/10, all that other stuff. I don't think we need to dwell on it.
Yep.
So we're going to change up, based on a lot of feedback we've gotten, the book club a little bit. So,
well, we keep changing it. The thing is, right, is I'm gonna tell a secret that I have kept, right? Is I've sort of had this attitude where I'm like, no one reads the books, blah blah blah. We got to make the punk kids read, blah blah blah, right? The thing is, I have absolutely no idea how many people actually read or not. I have not counted. I have not done a survey. I don't even know.
I'll say this.
I'm basically assuming that no one reads because if I make that assumption, and take this attitude, then I hope that is the attitude that will force us to keep trying to get more people to read.
Wait, so
and thus we'll
self-deception is a valid means to success?
I'm not deceiving myself.
So you're lying to other people?
No.
You're saying kids don't read it. You don't know.
Kids definitely don't read.
What are you basing that on?
I know they don't read.
What did you just say?
Because kids tell me they don't read.
I take a very different tack.
Okay.
I've been saying no one's going to read the books because I'm hoping that what will happen is people will feel indignant, like he's going to say, I'm going to fucking read the book. Yeah.
That's the idea.
That's my plan.
All right.
But again, deception. Valid strategy of success?
That's not deception. That's just insulting. It's like, hey, you punk kid, you're not going to read this.
But I know he will read it because I said he won't.
Yeah, well, we're going to figure out how many people actually read. Regardless,
So
we are going to
basically,
make some changes to hopefully...
The biggest change, and I don't know why we didn't even see this, and I thought about it a lot.
I'm going to tell you what the problem with the idea. But
So
anyway.
basically before, we should treat the book club reviews the same way as we treat a real review, like anything else we talk about, where we do the review, which is, this is why it's awesome with no spoilers, so you know to read it, and you know it's awesome. You're like, all right, I'm going to do it. And then we do the final thoughts, the spoilers, all right, so we know you've read it. Wasn't it fucking awesome when the guy killed the guy in the second chapter?
The problem is that if we still did Thursday episodes every Thursday, that would work. But we'd have to basically give 2 Thursday episodes per book, and we only do 2 Thursday episodes per month, if that. So either we would do a book a month, and Thursday would become book club night, or we did a book every 2 months, in which case every other Thursday episode would be book club.
But at the same time,
or if we did it every 4 months, and then we're doing a book every 4 months, that's only 3 books a year.
And they still can't finish reading them, so that's it's a good amount of time.
That's still, we're not going to be, it's like, I don't know.
Why? You want to do it more often? You want to?
Well, it feels like either Thursday is going to become book night, or I don't know.
Or we don't do them that often.
Maybe we should make it a completely separate episode and give Thursday back to Thursday and make book club its own episode.
But you're the one always complaining that we don't have any Thursdays to do.
I know.
I think my strategy for Thursday episodes now is going to be to just force a topic. And we'll just do it because all I have to do is get you talking.
Maybe if we do 2 book club episodes per month, or one book club episode per month.
You think they're gonna read these books in a month?
And no, we do 1 book club episode per month, which would be 2. If we do 2 episodes per book, that would be 6 books a year, right? But then that book club episode is not a Thursday episode; it's its own episode. It has nothing to do with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Well, even if it's its own episode, we can put it up in Thursdays, but we can skip all that meta.
But we would still do 2 other non-book Thursdays every month.
Yeah, that I expected to do that anyway.
All right, so let's do that.
So regardless, The Lies of Locke Lamora, the way we're going to do this, little change up, we're going to review it and talk about it straight up, and we're not going to spoil anything, and we're going to warn you when spoilers come. So if you have not read the book yet, this is our chance to convince you to read the book, and you can come back and listen to, everything past the spoiler line where you find out how Locke dies.
Rim is just, doing the tell you something that may or may not be true, so that you are, that's the greatest when you can spoil someone but keep the uncertainty so that they, even though they'll be thinking about that thing, they won't know if it's actually going to happen or not because now they're uncertain.
Evangelion is the best example of that. You just go to someone who's never seen it, doesn't really know what it's about, and say, yeah, that Eva show, it's great, but everyone dies in the end. Everyone. Every single character dies. And they won't believe you.
Well, because it's not directed by Tomino, so...
Nah.
No, anyway.
So, Locke Lamora, straight up, having read this book...
I don't know how to pronounce Lamora, and we don't have a guide. I'm going to check the internet. Maybe I can find it.
I switch between Lamora and Lamora, depending on how I'm feeling.
I don't know which is correct, but saying Lamora is, it feels better on the mouth. Saying Lamora, it is very effortful.
No, because if you say the whole title, it's very, the rhythm is nice. The Lies of Locke Lamora.
I don't know. I think I think The Lies of Locke Lamora is
but it's not as poetic. You don't have the rhythm. Like the Assyrians came down like the wolf on the fold. Their cohorts were gleaming in purple and gold.
It feels better in the mouth to say Lamora.
You're a terrible poet then.
Well, apparently he's already got titles for 7 books in the series.
Oh yeah, he's planned everything. Do you see all the tricks and all the little references he put near the end of this book that clearly he is going to answer later? Like the fact that Locke's real name has 5 syllables. He clearly, he has this whole thing planned out now that this book has been mildly successful. And the book was pretty successful as far as I can tell.
Well, judging by the front of the book, which I already discussed when we introduced it, that there's a zillion, pull quotes.
The thing is, Lies of Locke Lamora is not the most well-written book. The style...
No, it didn't win the Pulitzer Prize, guys.
The style of, it is notable for the story it tells. It is not notable for the way in which the story was told.
Well, I mean, there are... the writing is not bad writing. You can tell what's going on. When there's an action scene, you can follow the action really well.
Oh, yeah, but it's completely unnotable. There's nothing special about the way it's written.
No. the descriptions of the world, are very full and rich. It is he would make a really good campaign setting. He's like, yes, there are 5 castles here, and they are made of this material.
Oh, yeah, they're full and rich.
This one is the tallest one, and, and this one is shorter.
They're full and rich, but... they're asides always.
Yep.
And whenever they come in this way that it's really hard to explain this, but they reek of a game book. So hard.
10 times hard.
And they have that kind of nod to your people living in the modern world. He'll describe a sport, and he's so obviously wanting you to compare it to football and compare the things they've got set up to the real modern world.
Oh yeah, he describes the rule of the sport, but then the sport doesn't actually matter really.
That's fine. The problem is the way he describes these things has the same wink and a nod that in a D&D campaign, you describe some traveler comes from some portal. He's got this stick and it's metal. It's 4 feet long. And on the end of it, there's these holes. And it made some thunder earlier. And the DM's looking at you the whole time it's a gun. I'm not going to call it a gun. The characters don't know. But it's a gun. And isn't that cool?
Yeah,
these books do that all the time.
The thing is, right, is on the one hand, it's doing the Cowboy Bebop thing, right, where you have a story and you have a world. And the world is obviously this crazy world that has a ton of crazy shit going on, right? It's you have these castles and all this stuff. What's the crystal? What's it called?
Elderglass.
Elderglass. All this shit is made of elderglass because there was some civilization that lived here before the current civilization.
Full disclosure. Anything that includes precursor civilizations gets my rocket going.
So there
already.
was a precursor civilization with crazy advanced magic technology that's now gone, and there are people now living in the Elderglass that they don't know how to make or any, right? Which is totally cool. It's a Cowboy Bebop, right? There's these gates, and there's something going on with the gates, but really our story of our characters that we're focusing on has nothing to do with that. They're just in this world, and we're gonna we're gonna show you that this world is totally bigger and awesomer than these characters to make a really good setting, right? And that's always cool. The difference between Locke Lamora and Cowboy Bebop is that Cowboy Bebop doesn't really dive into the details of the world. They just sort of show you the world. It's there's gates. Their characters use them, and they hint there's obviously a big story about these gates. We're not going to tell you anything about them.
And they tell oblique stories to those. Early on, there's the kid who was immortal in Cowboy Bebop. Yep. And that is oblique to the gates. That story comes out of the gates, intersects with our plot that we're following, and then kind of falls away.
Yeah, Locke Lamora, right? They basically go in depth and tell you all these crazy details about things that, are like, they actually fill out those things in the world. They don't just like wink at you like, hey, there's a sport called something. They're actually like, here's all the rules of the sport. We're going to tell you every single rule of the sport that there is. And we're going to tell you the history of the sport and everything just like they would in the Forgotten Realms. But then there are other things they don't tell you, right? They don't give you, usually a book, they tend to either have the omniscient view, you know everything, or the one character view, you know what this character knows, right? Or something like that. This book, it's like he tells you whatever it's convenient for you to know. It's like if he doesn't want you to know that because it'll be a cool, suspenseful mystery, then he'll hide it from you and then tell it to you at the right time. If he wants to save it for a sequel, he'll give you a character's name, like what's that girl, Sabitha, right?
Yep.
He'll tell you that this girl exists and won't tell you anything about her, just because he wants to drag it for the sequel. And there'll be, something else. It's like he'll want you to know part of it, but he won't want you to know everything because it's a surprise. And it's like, come on, guys, tell me, you got to be consistent here. Don't tell me just when it's convenient to tell me. You gotta have some pattern to it.
Well, I guess this is why this is a fun book, but not a great book, because every time he tells you about the world, it's always kind of a shoehorned in aside. It's always just kind of like...
It's often cool. Like,
it's awesome.
Like that sport is actually a pretty good sport, but it just has nothing to do with the story.
So it's a book where the events and the story itself are the most interesting part. It's, in my eyes, the perfect kind of book to turn into a movie. Mm-hmm. Like The Prince of Nothing.
A completely shallow action movie.
Not necessarily. It's not that shallow. It's just that the writing, the style of the writing and the style of the literature and the act of reading it does not impart that much value compared to just the interest in the story. I wanted to know what happened next. I didn't linger on the meaning of a word at the end of a sentence.
Yeah, the other problem, though, is that really there are 3 stories going on, right? You've got the story of the past, right? You've got the story of the con, because obviously the con
the past is just context for the current situation.
Right, and then you've got the story of, the stranger comes to town, right? So you've got the 3 stories, and the thing is, the story of the con, I like that a lot more. The stranger that came to town really felt like he came out of nowhere. And even though they gave you a connection...
Oh, that connection was the same connection as here's all the stuff about Wraithstone.
Yeah, exactly. The connection of the bad guy, right, to Locke Lamora was such a weak connection. It's like... why did Locke Lamora really care about this guy?
I think kind of the point, not to spoil.
It's not like a connection like Darth Vader is Luke's father. There's a connection.
We can't spoil, but that was a really interesting twist that we'll talk about after the spoiler line as to why that was the case.
All right.
Because I thought that was actually pretty well done.
All right.
It's something that, it's one of the few things that a book, like the way this book ends and like what happens in it, is not expected. Like, you'll read this book, you're like, I know where this is going.
Yeah,
I
I didn't expect.
It'll throw you for a loop.
I will not lie. I was looped.
But because of stuff like that, and not because it's shallow, because it's not that shallow, but just because the events themselves stand alone and are interesting, this would make a great freaking movie.
Yeah,
I would see this in the theater.
It'd be, but it wouldn't be like a deep movie. It would be, you go for the action and the surprise and the
story. The story is good. The story is, but solid.
But at the same, the story doesn't say anything. It doesn't have a message for you.
Yeah, it does. The message is don't fuck with Locke Lamora.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't have a message about like some like the.
Well, I'll put it this way.
Lord of the Flies has something to say about society. This doesn't have anything to say about society.
Consider The Prince of Nothing. Those books, the event, this is why I hold them to a higher standard. Or like a Michael Chabon book where his writing is so lyrical and just beautiful. But with The Prince of Nothing, the events are interesting and I really want to know what happened next. But the style of the writing and the way the world is introduced to you is also so masterful that is like this completely separate enjoyment.
But The Prince of Nothing has something to say.
Well, that's the third factor.
About the nature of free will and knowledge and such.
That's the third factor. That book has 3 aspects.
And that is, so Locke Lamora only has like 1.5 aspects.
Locke Lamora has 1.5 aspects.
Yeah,
Prince of Nothing has 3.
That's right.
Chabon has 4. It's that plus a Pulitzer.
He's short on aspects, basically. But the aspects he has, he's got him, right? I mean, if I wrote a book, I would have like half aspects.
This is also the book. If you want source material, because not a lot of people will have read this. If you're going to run like a fantasy D&D campaign, just steal this setting.
Oh, yeah.
Straight up.
The thing is, I don't know how well it worked for D&D specifically because it's not so much of a medieval, it's more of a Renaissance kind of setting.
Yeah, so set it in Waterdeep. Waterdeep's a very Renaissance-y kind of city, that kind of thing.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's
or
definitely...
Or Eberron with, push more toward the steampunk and the technology.
Well, I mean, you can tell with all the boats going on, it's definitely supposed to be a Venice situation, right? It's so obvious, with all they basically take a boat anywhere they go, almost. And every, the big festival is, on the water. It does seem, though, that, Venice is, lots of little waterways, right, in between everything. This seems like this big waterways. If you just replaced all the really big roads with water, but it kept all the regular roads as roads. That's what it seems like.
Well, that was one thing that was weird. Despite how accurately, how much he would explain, this is this district, this is that district. I never had a clear map in my head of where anything was.
Did you look at the map in the book?
No.
There's a map in the book.
But from the writing, you don't get that.
You need to look at the map.
You just don't have the sense of where things are.
Yeah, without that map, you are basically going to have no idea. But the map basically gives you everything you need to know because it's all labeled.
Yeah, but along those lines, the book also kind of... characters take abuse that is infeasible and survive. Yeah,
well, it's obvious. I mean, the book is not a realistic book. There's fucking crazy magic and shit in it. I mean, come on.
It was kind of elegant how Scott Lynch was able to have magic and yet set it up such that it's not just the panacea for everybody.
Yeah,
it's only the panacea for the boss.
That's always the trouble when you bring magic into any book, right? I mean, it's like, okay, so there's magic. You have to make if you want to just let everyone have magic, then it's just crazy, right? And no one has any problems because they can solve them with magic. So
or you make magic gimped and then it sucks. Prince of Nothing did it well. Magic is nuclear fucking power, but only a few people have it.
Yeah, you can make magic hurt people. You can make magic hard to get. But the thing is, you have to do it in such a way that doesn't insult the reader. It's like, yeah, we're going to make it so the only way you can get magic is this magic powder. Duke. You need this magic powder to get... It's like, okay, come on, guys. Really? That's kind of weak sauce. But here, the way they limit the magic is actually a clever and new way that I have not seen in a fantasy setting before. So that is good.
So I think the best way to sell this to you, if you're an anime fan, and if you're not, you should watch Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro.
Well, it's similar to Lupin, right?
The way Locke's character is, imagine Lupin if he had a backstory that was legit.
All right.
He acts the same way as Lupin. He's ruthless and protects his friends above all else. Mm-hmm. He steals and he doesn't give a shit about the stuff he stole. He steals because stealing is the whole point.
Yep.
And he likes to mess with people.
Yep.
He has weird love triangle problems, and the girl he likes is never there, and other girls like him, he doesn't like them.
Yeah, the only problem, though...
He has his gang, and every one of them is like... He has his jigen, only instead of a gun, he has 2 freaking axes.
The only difference between Lupin and Locke Lamora, right, is that Lupin is pretty much badass all around, right? I mean, he's got some friends, Goemon is much better at fighting than Lupin, and,
Jigen is
much better at shooting, but... Lupin ain't bad at shooting, Lupin ain't bad at fighting.
Locke's not bad at much.
Locke is bad at fighting.
At what?
He basically anything fighting, he gets the shit beat out of him. He can't fight for shit.
So look at who he fights. The one guy that we really see him fight outside of his backstory, it's basically a Kenshiro situation, but there's no Kenshiro, and you're fighting one of the Kenshiro bad guys.
No, they're fights. Locke is not good at everything. He's basically he's min-maxed. He's got all his points into being a con artist and such. Whereas the Lupin has a lot of points in stealing and is across the board. He's got average points. Locke Lamora is min-maxed. He's got some mins. Lupin has no mins.
But forget all that. The story and the way the character is and the way he interacts with everything. This is the story of pretty much what Lupin would do in a world like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fun. It's like, hey, let's have a fun stealing old time. Woo! And then you do.
So, I think at this point, let's spoil stuff. Spoilers.
So if you haven't read it, don't listen or listen. I mean, even with the spoilers, I guess the book could still be entertaining. I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess before we spoil anything else, the one thing I really want to talk about is Wraithstone. Because one elegant thing he did is he talks about gentled animals early on. Mm-hmm. Like there's a gentled goat and whatever, and I was creepy ass eyes looking at you. And I just assumed that gentled meant gelded, basically.
No, then he explains it.
Yes, but that was way later. In the beginning, he didn't explain it. It's like blah, 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 gentled. And I read right past that and I thought, yeah, gelded. All right, whatever. I don't know why
I think that was intentional.
Yes. That's why I'm saying it was one elegantly like put together part. When he actually explains what he means by gentled and the whole thing, basically the elder glass asbestos, the wraithstone's like, yeah, if you burn this shit, bad news.
Yeah. No, but I think what actually happened, right? We already discussed in the first half how he'll go into great detail about aspects of the world. He'll talk about a sport or the Elder Glass Towers or, the festivals or whatever.
That rose garden.
Right. He'll go into all these, the rose, oh, fuck yeah.
They didn't tell us shit about that.
That shit was awesome.
No, that wasn't awesome. What was awesome was the teacher in that room.
That's the other thing is all the teaching characters are always the best. It's like, I just want to hear about that guy and Chains. Tell me their story. Give me
my God.
Give me the prequel of Chains in the war with the guy who runs the
Chains
military
is
school.
Favorite fucking character. Chains is the equivalent of you didn't watch Avatar, but Uncle Iroh, like that level of character.
How come they never write the book about that guy? They always got to write a book about the apprentice of the better guy. Give me the book about the better guy. Tell me the story of Chains. Give me the Chains book.
Keep reading The Prince of Nothing. You know what it is now? The second part, like the second trilogy you haven't read? Mm-hmm. Basically, the Great King, the God King, is right now, and the Great Crusade of ancient days is right now.
No, but
all this is now.
No, I don't want to read that. I want to read about Siswatha, who never shits. That's what I want to read.
It's the same story.
Oh, okay.
It's basically, all right, the baddest ass wizard and the God King and everything. This is basically the story that will be the story in the past of some other book.
Yeah, because Earthsea, right? The story of Ged. Ged is the guy. That's it, right? He's the wizard. He's, in every, there isn't really a Merlin of that world.
He's the Elminster. He's the Raceland.
He's got an apprentice. He's got a master who's pretty awesome, but he surpasses that master, and he becomes the Merlin and the Gandalf of that world, and that's the story of him, and that's kind of why Earthsea is awesome. But this book Locke Lamora is not the the number one guy in this world, and you don't even get to see the Duke. Whole book, no Duke shows up. Everyone's talking about the Duke. The Duke never appears, not once.
Duce.
Where is the Duke? There is something.
He was at that party.
Did he say anything? Was he a part of any scene? Actually,
I think they pointed out that he was standing somewhere.
I didn't see that. I don't remember that, but it could have been a sentence or two, like the Duke was standing in the corner, but I saw no actual appearance of the Duke.
So I did not expect his con, spoilers. I did not expect his con in the beginning to be when the Midnighters came and talked to the people he was conning. I was like, wow, he's fucked. All right, whatever.
No, I knew see, that's the thing that the part with the Midnighters I saw through. I was like, oh, he is the Midnighter. He's fooling. Right, but I didn't see what I thought when he did that though. I thought that the Midnighters were a myth, and when there actually were Midnighters, that's when I was like, oh fuck.
I expected the Midnighters to come and things to get complicated, but not in the way they got. What's kind of cool is there's this story. Like the story was the con and like Locke and the secret piece and everything. That's going along, and then Grey King throws a monkey wrench in everything. And this is the part I wanted to touch on from before. Mm-hmm. The Grey King was disconnected from Locke completely. He just had his own bullshit to deal with, and he had his own plan, his own revenge, and all that stuff. But it was kind of interesting at the end when Locke, is screaming at him when they're having their fight, when he's going to go kill the Grey King. And he's basically saying, why'd you do this to us? You could have just had the fucking money. Mm-hmm. We didn't want it. And the fact that all that death and all the problems that Locke faced, he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, basically.
Yeah, but that at the same time, right? It's like, okay, it might make sense that, this Grey King came out of left field like that. But story-wise, because he came out of left field, even though it might be realistic or neat or original, it made me not really care so much about the Grey King plot because it was out of left field. You don't attach it because, that would be, more whatever. You attach it so that I would actually care.
But that's the interesting part because I cared about all this other stuff and the Grey King just comes in and fucks everything up.
Yeah, I really just didn't want the Grey King plot to be there at all. I was like, go away, Grey King.
No, but look at Locke. Locke felt the same way. He's got all his stuff going. Everything's going awesome. Like, yeah, I got this con. Things
yeah,
go.
But
and then the Grey King throws a monkey wrench in his plans. And what does he do? He says, you know what? I can deal with this. Let's just deal with the Grey King thing and keep doing our awesome stuff. And the fact that that's like the turning point in the book when all his friends die and everything goes to shit because he had the same attitude that I had reading the book. Grey King, whatever. I want to get back to this con. Oh, shit, Grey King.
Yeah,
I liked that part. I liked the way that was handled. I
didn't want the Grey King story. I wanted the Khan story.
But the Khan story would have been lame without something to fuck
I don't know.
it up.
I was really fucking enjoying that Khan story.
But it was so simple.
But it was so good. They could have just threw in one more twist on that and then ended it. They made the book a lot shorter.
Plus, the Grey King was an excuse to bring in all these other aspects.
And then what you could have done is instead of bringing in the Grey King, right, is you take the backstory of Locke that you were building and actually tie it in instead of making me read the sequel. I have the sequel. I haven't read it yet.
I'm glad they didn't tie it in. It was like a parallel thread. They were just flashbacks that served the purpose of, I need to explain this away, or I need to foreshadow this.
Well, it is kind of good that they didn't tie it in a way because it becomes more like The Godfather, where now in the second book, hopefully they will continue with the backstory, which, I always end up liking the backstory. In Spider-Man 2099, after a bunch of issues, they actually started putting like this extra section in the back that had the backstory from his childhood, and I actually ended up liking that a whole lot. So... Hopefully, I have the sequel. I'm going to read it. Hopefully, it continues the backstory.
Actually, the new Avatar series looks like it's going to do something similar.
Which Avatar series is this?
The TV show.
So there's a new TV series?
Yes.
Even though there was a bad movie?
The movie is done.
Okay.
No one cares about that. That's M. Night Shyamalan proved that he hates movies.
But the TV series didn't have an ending, or did it?
No, it did. It ended. There's a new series that's going to happen in the same world. It takes place 70 years later.
All right.
And the deal is basically that it's the next Avatar. It's her story. Mm-hmm. But it'll flash back to kind of the denouement of the previous story that did end. So, like, you'll get flashbacks to, like, the backstory of this new character is intertwined with, like, the follow-up exposition of the previous story.
I never watched any Avatar, but
it's really good. You should watch it.
In going with the things I've already said, they should tell the stories about the previous Avatar, who is the most badass ancient dude.
This one was that one.
There wasn't one before that was even more ancient and even more awesome.
You get to watch them hanging out with dragons.
All right.
You should watch Avatar.
I got other stuff going on. I've actually scarily almost watched all the Leiji Matsumoto's that matter.
So when you're done with all that, you should watch Avatar. It's worth watching.
I got other things going on.
What if it were an anime and it was coming out right now?
Yeah, I probably still, I got other things to do.
Like what?
Like shit.
What are you going to do? You run out of Yamato.
I already did. No, almost.
So what are you going to watch?
Not Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Anyway, so I made a bunch of predictions that fell through. Like, I didn't think Nazca was actually dead.
Oh, you didn't?
I thought she was behind because she winked at Locke, right? This is me reading into stuff. And then they're like, yeah, we'll get out of this arranged marriage that we don't care about. But then she was winking and like, I got a plan, you'll see. And then, she died and all that craziness. I kind of expected that was all her plan.
Oh, I didn't even make that connection.
Especially because they made the connection later that, they went out in the funeral procession and they made a point of saying her body was not in the casket. But now she's just dead.
Yeah.
I kind of like the Bonds Mage because he was such.
You know who he reminded me of? You know who he reminded me of?
Your mom.
Well, first of all, I liked him a lot, but I liked him in a hating.
He reminded me of Bullet Tooth Tony a little bit.
No,
because he just had this who the fuck are you?
No.
Don't even talk to me.
I liked him a lot in the way that he's a bad guy you love to hate, right? But you know who he reminds me of? In the Indiana Jones, that bald Nazi guy, who's all slimy and he turns his thing that looks like he's gonna hurt someone. He turns it into a coat hanger.
Yep,
that guy.
That scene was one of my favorite scenes.
That guy is the Bonds Mage because he's just so bad, but he's also so secretly dangerous.
But he's also not.
You don't want to fuck with him.
He is an evil dude, but he's evil in this very contracted way. He doesn't care. He's just I don't care so much that I'm going to torture you because a guy paid me to. And
I can. And because no one can touch me. You can't touch this.
He also...
imagine if no one could touch you for anything. You were just untouchable.
You were invincible. The kings of the world, if you say whatever you say, they'll be like, okay.
It's you might not have a strong motivation to kill, to torture someone, but you can. So why the fuck not? Because you're just so bad and evil and a jerk.
He said towards the end when he's like, all right, Jean, kill Locke. And he's about to have this, oh, wait, no, stop. Locke, kill Jean.
Yeah.
I can picture that scene in the movie being awesome and hilarious at the same time.
Yeah.
Because he's like, no, wait. I've got a better idea. Yeah.
It was a better idea, but it was also...
It was the wrong idea.
Stupid idea.
Yeah, because
Like
Locke's
as soon as he said no wait, I was like, okay, how are they gonna get out of this? And as soon as he said no wait, I have a better idea. I'm like, that's how he's getting out of it.
So that whole bit, basically, I love the bit toward the end because we can't, just skipping around in this where they have nothing. And he's got to get a disguise and like start everything up again from nothing. So he tries like the bullshit plan number 1 and the bullshit plan number 2. And then like the only plan that works in the end is like the ludicrous plan.
I do like how he tries these multiple plans and they don't work. But what I kind of feel that it was a little bit forced because there had to be some simpler plan where he could have gotten some clothes.
Are you kidding? Those clothes were like 1,000 crowns.
I'm just saying there had to be a way he could have just like freaking stolen some clothes, like tied a guy up in an alley or something and taken his clothes, But
he's not a good fighter and he's alone.
It's true. But I mean, all right, go into someone's house and take the clothes out of their cabinet, whatever.
But there's security and guards in the fancy person's houses.
Yeah,
he can't steal from anyone poor.
He could just sneak in. He's done that before. He snuck into the freaking Don's house as the Midnighter.
Plus, he needed ultra fancy clothes.
Yeah, the Don's house had ultra fancy clothes.
How's he going to break into the Don's house again?
He did it before.
Yeah, at night with help.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, also not busted up.
Yeah. He could have gone and sewn some clothes.
But when, how that whole plan comes together was so Lupin. He sneaks in.
Oh, it was so Lupin.
He sneaks in, he bribes the one guy, bribes the other guy, bribes the third. And also, like in the Leonardo DiCaprio movie, when he's the con man.
Oh, that one where he prints the fake checks.
Yeah, why do I forget the name of that movie?
I forget it
I feel
also.
really stupid now.
Did I see that in the theater?
Yeah, we all saw it in the theater together.
Oh, wow. I don't remember
Regardless, remember the scene where he...
Wasn't that the one that was based on a real guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So remember when Tom Hanks comes in to arrest him?
Mm-hmm.
And he flashes his, wallet like he's got a badge. And then he says, yeah, we already got the guy. We arrested him. And he waves out the window at the cop who's leading the other guy away. And the guy just kind of waves back. And then that seals the deal on the con. The Locke basically did the exact same thing like 4 times with the one guard and the other guard, and he's bribing everybody and then pretending to be the guy who's pretending to bribe people for the guy.
Yeah.
That was all awesome.
It was pretty, it's always cool.
And then when he gets the merchant guy locked up in his room, he just fucking throws the orchid away and walks away like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah, it's like when you're an engineer nerd type like us, right? If you see just an awesome plan happen, it's just so fun, especially if it's a clever plan. It's the same thing with like a clever joke. Even if it's a really racist joke or something that's offensive, the construction of the joke in and of itself can be so awesome. It just makes you feel good as a nerd type of person.
Well, yeah, it's the NSMB.
If there's a plan, even if it's an unrealistic plan or if the content of the plan is stupid or evil, as long you just watching the construction of the plan is like looking at a computer program. It's like, oh, it's so glorious, awesome.
The NSMB.
Yeah.
Yep. So at the end, and I'm sure you noticed this, but I like how Gene, like all the side stories where they go to stay at all the priesthoods, when he goes to stay at the death priesthood.
Yeah, that was actually a cool story.
But when he runs away and like he leaves the name and the note, and then he uses that name again later, and then Locke uses the same name even later just because.
Yep.
But toward the end, when like everyone knows who everyone is, like, yeah, I'm the this, you're the that, you're the spider, we're all cool. Let's deal with this crazy Wraithstone that we're all afraid of. Mm-hmm. Like I like that whole scene because he's being totally honest.
Yeah, they actually approached it, pretty. It was like no one was stupid in the scene.
Yeah, that
none of the people were like being jerks about it. Even the Don, who was like, it's like, listen, Don.
Don't forget the Don. I think a character I like too. We don't get much is the Don's bodyguard. Because that guy was he was portrayed at first as kind of like a thug, and like the Don and the Donna were kind of portrayed, as bad or like Locke's getting him. But they were both kind of cool and badass in their own right.
I don't know. I think the Midnighter lady was definitely much more badass.
Of course she was, but she was a lot older, more experienced. But those two were cool. But their assistant, like when he catches Locke at the end, he's like, "You fucker," and Locke's like, "No, seriously." And then like as the truth is coming out, he's kind of just smirking like, this is kind of awesome. I'm just going to hang back.
Yeah.
I get it now. I like that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I pictured him as looking like the guy who is the bodyguard to the bad guy in Moulin Rouge.
He reminded me more of like Sagat from Street Fighter. That kind of guy.
Similar guy.
Yeah.
But at the end, Locke's telling the truth to everybody. He's like, look, and Grey King, and notice how he seamlessly turns from actual truth to straight up lies. Oh, and the ship. You've got to bomb the ship because you've got to get rid of that thing because it's bad. And my real name's Tavern and all that. Like he just shifts into the straight up lies.
Yep.
Like that was the climax of the book. That was like the pinnacle moment of yes, Locke lies.
Yep.
Because he didn't lie all that much up until that point.
No, I mean, it's called The Lies of Locke Lamora. It's like, well, which lies were there? Was the lie about that, right? There was the lies that he told that he was trying to get clothes.
Yeah, when he's conning, he's lying.
And it's also sort of weird that the book's from the perspective, it's like, the book is about the con, right? Or the conning, and they show you enough of the conning, because if they don't show you any of it, then it's like, well, you don't get oh man, that's so awesome. But they show you some, but then they don't show you like that final bit of each one, until the time is right. And so that way they can at least pull something on you that gives some excitement and twisting.
But I guess it's just that all the characters that matter in the story aren't stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't think... Is there anyone at all who's stupid?
I mean, some people get conned, but like...
it's like anyone would be conned, even a smart person.
Yep.
They're not stupid. They're just... They got fooled,
Of course, I mean, the title could allude to... Because, in his backstory, how he basically got all those kids killed because until he understood, like, what it means to lie and con and, like, the consequences of things, he got a whole bunch of kids murdered.
Yep.
And, he dealt with that. And then I kind of like the way they dealt with that throughout the story and how he learned his lessons. And
yeah, the thing is the part of his childhood that is, you only get up to a certain point. You don't get you don't learn anything about Savither or how he...
Of course not. More books.
Yeah, right? But it's like, that's definitely the cooler part. It's sort of the same situation where you don't get the story of the cool old kings. The cool part would be when, Locke and the other guys, they said they had ripped off, like, how many Dons already?
Yep. And
that's the cool part. Just give me a book where they rip off those other Dons, and that's the whole book.
I kind of like the fact that they keep using the currency until you start to get a sense of what they're worth. And then you think back, you're like, he had 40,000 crowns just in a pit.
Well, yeah, they tell you like what a crown is worth, like holy shit. And then they talk about how many crowns. It's like, oh, fuck me, right? A crown is like $1,000.
More than that.
A lot. It's a crown. It's holy shit. Like you could shave a little bit off a crown and you'll be freaking loaded.
So notice how the style of the speech in the book was straight up vernacular. You fuckers, asshole, jerk. I'll get you.
Well, it's a fantasy world. You can make it whatever you want.
Yeah, but I like that. Too often, you don't see this in like
if you do the these and thous. And,
no, you don't need to do these and thous. But it's more, look at other fantasy books on this level. The ones that are well written, but not like masterfully written. Like the writing is not special, but have a good story. They're a little pulpy and fun. They tend to either make up a bunch of proper nouns that characters use for like swearing. Like they have their fake swear words.
Fake swear words stick out like a sore thumb.
I know.
I'm not a fan.
Or they'll use like they'll like the language will be very God that con mal that.
Well, they do have plenty of proper nouns in this book that are guard da con.
Yeah, but they don't use it in the way that the Mordaks are used in those lesser, like not as well written fantasy books.
This is true.
That here it kind of pointedly is in the vernacular to remind you like these are normal people, who talk to each other in a vernacular language in a fantastical world. Like and once I think it works.
It didn't stick out. I didn't.
Also, they're in a city. It's kind of like New Yorkers. They just say fuck a lot because that's what you do.
I didn't notice it. It didn't bother me, which means that's the right way to do it. It's bad when it stands out and you notice something. If you don't,
I also like how he used a lot of Italianish or even just straight up Italian words.
That's the Venetian references.
But they did
the
it
Renaissance
with all the
references.
Most of them are references to mafia stuff.
Yeah,
because there's the whole mafia thing.
That's what's going on.
Yeah.
He's brought in, the magic plus the mafia. How often is that, I mean, I guess it's halflings in D&D, right? Same kind of situation.
Yeah. So I guess, I don't know. We should probably end this, but I could just keep talking about, it was awesome when blah happened. But
I mean, that's pretty much the whole book. A bunch of things happen. It's awesome when they happen. That's all there is to it.
I'm going to keep reading these until they peter out, I think.
Oh, you want to? I got the second one. I'll read it, and then I'll give it to you.
Yeah, I'll probably just keep reading them until I get sick of them, like the Temeraire books. I read them until I got sick of them.
They've already said there's going to be a whole bunch of them, so oh boy.
Yeah, but they're fun enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
Because I got to read until I find out a couple of things.
I
want to know more about Wraithstone. All my fanboy
What's
stuff.
more to know about it?
I want to know... Like, I'm sure we're going to see it used for bad. and gotten away with.
Well, I
in the
think
later
what
books.
actually, the thing is with the Wraithstone, right? It's like they tell you about it, but you don't. And the thing is, she was like, shame on me, right? Because it's such a Chekhov's gun, the Wraithstone. Big time Chekhov's gun. Like, it was Chekhov's elephant in the room, right?
Chekhov's vuvuzela.
Right. But the problem with that is that there were so many Chekhov's guns, right? Because he told you about the sport. He went into great detail about so many things in the world that the Wraithstone Chekhov's gun blended in with all these false Chekhov's guns.
No. It was easy to spot it. It's Scooby-Doo. Every other aside was a contained aside, and maybe it was referenced later, but it didn't come up again later. However, the gentle stuff kept coming up. He was like, this was gentle. This wasn't gentle. He preferred gentle. He preferred ungentle.
But he's still, his use of, it was hiding in the crowd, right? The Wraithstone aside that told you all about Wraithstone hid amongst all the other ones.
There was the aside about
and
Wraithstone.
Even when I read the aside about Wraithstone, I thought, oh man, this is going to come up later. But when it came up later, I was like, fuck me, why didn't I remember
Here's
it earlier?
the difference. When the sport came up,
me.
there was just the aside. All right. There was a lot of things that just had an aside. Wraithstone had the aside, and it also had constant mentions throughout the entire book.
Yeah, I should have remembered it, though, but I didn't until he actually brought it up at the end. And I was like, oh, damn it, why didn't I remember it? I should have remembered it. I even knew that it was a Chekhov's gun, and then I forgot that it was Chekhov's gun. It's like if Chekhov's standing there holding this gun, and he holds it there for an hour, and then, he puts it away into a drawer, and you see him put it away in the drawer, and then 10 minutes later, he takes it out and shoots you with it, and you're like, oh, I forgot you put it in the drawer.
So the other thing I want to know is I really, at some point, want to know what blew that hole in that one Elder Glass tower and how.
Oh, yeah. Also, you got to know about Sabbatha, right?
Yep, and the Rose Garden. I want to know more about that.
And also, I want to see the Bonds mages come, let's see if they're
probably going to come and fucking, Locke's whole thing was, I didn't kill him. It's okay. But look at the way they handled every other technicality in this book. It is not okay.
No, I want to see the Bonds mages and come back big time, and that's going to be hopefully epic. Hopefully that's just the end of the book, the end of the last book. The Bonds mages come, and it's just like, well, boom, you're fucking toast, and that's it. Just leave him out of it until the very last book, and then bring him back, and there's no stopping him, and that's because there is no stopping him.
Maybe there is some sort of Elder Glass technology, Elder guns.
If they bring the world into it, though, then you lose the good parts of the Cowboy Bebop thing of having a world that isn't the story, where the world is not the story.
Oh, no, but he can just
I don't want the world to become the story.
It doesn't have to. He can keep revealing stuff as asides and just in the course of telling his other stories. Because we learned a lot about Elder Glass and things. We just didn't learn everything.
What'd you learn about Elder Glass besides that it's old?
We learned this indestructible, and they keep talking about the alchemical stuff and how it plays with light. And this one has a hole in it, so something can destroy it, but we don't know what. And then the Rose Garden, there's this kind of
Maybe
thing.
Maybe they made it with a hole in it.
So he can tell us more about the world without making the world the plot.
Could be diamonds. Does the world have diamonds?
And he's gonna keep telling us stuff about the world, Well,
I mean, that was half the book, was just descriptions of the world. So
it's gonna keep
the next
happening.
book is just as large. It's got to be descriptions of the world. But they're also traveling, so it's gonna be descriptions about a different geographic area.
But here's what I expect.
World.
I expect at some point in this book series, a character is going to stumble upon either the mummy of the elders who made the glass, or a tomb, or something related to them that is badass.
An old hermit who knows all the secrets.
Yeah, something like that. They're not going to tell us.
It's a secret to everybody.
They're not going to tell us all the secrets, but they are definitely going to give us.
I'm telling you the secret. Why you old man attack? I'm giving you
install security system.
Northwest, southwest is the way.
I think we're done. Lives of Locke Lamora, Scott Lynch, worth reading. If anyone out there has money and it hasn't already been done, option the rights to make this movie. This movie would do really, really, really well.
And Dodongo dislikes smoke.
This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geek Nights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geek Nights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geek Nights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.